The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters radio show was originally broadcast on October 12th, 2021.
Aloha and welcome, Maui, to the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matter radio show, sponsored by Mokulele Airlines. I'm your host, Pamela Tumpot, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, and today we're going to talk with Representative Angus Mckelvey about West Maui and challenges that are being faced there and in the business community, and the need for a West Maui hospital. We're going to hear comments from West Maui Taxpayers Association head Joe Pluta about the lack of affordable housing and rentals and concerns over infrastructure and sea level rise. And we're going to meet the owner of Maui Honeybee Sanctuary and learn more about their operations. But first, let me welcome Representative Angus Mckelvey, who has served the 10th House District, which is Lahaina, Ka'anapali, Kapalua, Ma'alaya, and North Kihei, since 2006.
For now.
For now.
It's going to change, people.
It's going to change. He was born in Honolulu, but has lived in Lahaina his whole life. He is a member of the Government Reform Committee, Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee, and the Pandemic and Disaster Preparedness Committee. Good morning, Angus. Aloha.
Good morning, Pamela. Thanks for having me on.
We are so glad to have you with us this morning. There is so much that you have been doing and so much that's been going on that really has greatly impacted West Maui, and so we appreciate your thoughts this morning.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're definitely facing a whole slew of challenges, both traditional and new.
Yes. So let's maybe kind of get right into it. You know, September and October tend to be slower months, and we know we've been hearing a lot of impacts that came from Governor Ige's message back in August 23rd, just before we were hitting into that, asking visitors to kind of postpone travel. So, you know, we've been hearing some impacts, but we're wondering what you've been hearing in the West Maui community and what challenges they are facing and what innovative ways are they implementing right now to sort of recover and get over some of the negative impacts that they've seen.
Well, I mean, it's funny. I mean, I actually just came back from the mainland and talking to people all over the place. Governor Ige's message really had nothing to do with it. A lot of them didn't even hear it. The main reason why that they were cooling their heels on coming to Hawaii is all of the stories have been coming back about the long lines, the high prices, the traffic is back again in spades, and you know they're just like we'll pass for now. You know, I think we're going to have a really, really busy winter season coming up, but for right now, it just seems like the general shift over there, and a lot of it too has to do with our infrastructure being closed still, half open.
Right.
I mean, when you have a visitor economy, when you have a tourism economy, you need to have the infrastructure to not only be able to provide for that, but to also give the residents the goods and services and quality of life they deserve.
Absolutely.
And when everything's half open, when you can only put 3 tables in a restaurant that used to sit like 10 or 12 or 15, you know, I mean, of course you're going to have long lines. You're going to have staff that are stressed. The customers take it out on the staff, who then turn around and leave because they're like, you know, it's just too much for them. And then now on top of that, you have the shortage of tests for people who don't want to get the vaccine, so they can't come to work. And so this is why I think you're seeing such a huge disruption, if you will, is that, you know, with all these people coming in, you only have an infrastructure that's a quarter to half open, and then you have the residents also, too, as well. And then you have all the new residents who've moved in and growth since the COVID pandemic began. And that, of course, is creating a whole slew of challenges, especially in the long-term realm. And to tie back to the conversation of the need for more medical services in a West Maui facility.
Right. So let me ask you, you just mentioned coming back from the mainland. And so what state where were you visiting?
I went to Colorado Springs because I'm co-chair of a multi-state working group.
Okay.
Where all these legislatures from all these different western states are kind of having the same thing that we've gone through, and that the federal government has given a lot of coronavirus relief funds, but the governors and their administrations are refusing to bring the legislature in to the decisions of how the money is spent and tracking where it is going and what they're doing. It's kind of the attitude is, like, go away. Don't bother us. We got this handled. You're just going to interfere in our ability to get these funds out. And, of course, they want oversight because it's really important that people know that this money's actually going for things that are going to help the community, especially from recovering from the effects of the pandemic, and not going for pork projects and pet projects and other things that are not only wasteful, but there's a clawback provision by the federal government, too. And that's a concern.
Absolutely.
You feds come in after December and say all of these things that your governor spent money on, no, you owe us the money back.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why there's this need, and a really good need, for oversight, not only in Hawaii of the legislature and the county governments, county council, but also in these other states. So it's a shared challenge, and being able to work with our colleagues from the other western states is really refreshing because, and this is where our visitor base comes from, too.
Right.
So it was, and getting their perspective and seeing, you can kind of see, you go there and, the masking has become either a community thing or it's become, they've really pared it down to situations like indoor crowded restaurants and everything like that. But for the most part, everything has been reopened.
That's what I was going to ask. Given that you're there and you're in Colorado, but you're working with legislators across the country, how are we faring compared to the reopening that you're seeing on the mainland and in the regions, and how are you feeling like we're doing with our reopening, given some of the conversations you've had?
I think we're doing terrible. I think we're cutting our throat right now, big time. It's surreal. Hawaii stands out now completely as an outlier. Mm-hmm. And, I think that's the thing. I think, you're seeing, but that's, I think, generating some of the frustration here locally is, rates are going down. In California, I just got back from LA. People mask up because it's the right thing to do. Yes, they have ordinances in restaurants, but for the most part, though, the mandates are gone. But you look at the COVID cases are plummeting. Same with Colorado. Now, granted, cooler months, people are more indoors. There's less traveling going on. You can tie that into the equation, but vaccination rates are rising all over the place. There have been campaigns to really get out there and try to depoliticize the issue, and I think all of these things has allowed them, to move towards reopening, at least reopening faster than we are.
Yeah, and
they're not a tourism economy. People fly to those cities for business. Right. They got to go.
Right.
You don't have to go to Hawaii.
Right.
And that's. So we're in more of a challenge to attract these visitor dollars back, but we also got to provide quality of life for our residents. I can't get lost in the picture at all.
Well, no, absolutely.
Long lines and angry crowds and empty shelves hurt our residents who are working 2 to 3 jobs.
Right.
They come into the store, half the stuff's gone, and the stuff that's there is $15.
Yeah,
it's a mountain. It's turning into a huge mountain, and so this ties in, I think, to the comment you guys made earlier and talked to Joe about affordable housing and rentals.
Right. Let's talk about that because, it is one of the Chamber's top priorities. We're going to talk to Joe in a little bit about what's his perspective from the West Maui Taxpayers Association. I know it's one of their top priorities. How are you feeling about the progress that we're making on affordable housing and rentals here in Maui County?
Well, there are projects here that I'm proud of that are moving forward, like the Kiawe Street apartments, which not only will be a great brand new units for affordable workforce people in Lahaina community, thanks to HHFDC, but also it's kind of a little bit of social justice that the working people of Lahaina in those buildings will have magnificent views of the neighbor islands.
Yes, isn't that wonderful?
To me, that was kind of the reason why I'm like, let's get this thing up the hill. Besides the infrastructure and being able to provide ways for people to walk to work.
Yeah.
And do those things, it's kind of nice to see working people actually get some of the benefits that, let's face it, multimillionaires are coming and buying up by the drove.
Right.
And so that's a success story. I think our work on the Front Street apartments will help to preserve us some units in that area. And there's also what has been nicknamed the Star Noodle Project, and I kind of take ownership of that one, much to Michael Moore's chagrin. But that's going to be an infill project behind the old Star Noodle restaurant, which again, you got housing, great view, you're right next to the shops, you're within walking distance of Lahaina town and businesses and work. That takes traffic off the road, allows people to live in West Maui. But despite those individual little successes, we are still drowning in a sea of a lack of affordable housing and rentals.
Right.
I mean, even do a Zillow search. The lowest price place you're going to find is probably $5,000 a month. No pets, people. So pet owners are completely displaced from this rental market. Okay, you have that. Then you have the other issue going on. You still have the corona issue working through mediation now.
Right.
Where you have tenants who fell behind due to the pandemic. They've gotten some assistance, they're trying to work it out with the landlords, but they're going through the mediation process to resolve it. And unfortunately, what it does is it does tie up the ability of potential new rental units.
Yeah.
Because now the people are there, they got to go through mediation and settle it out. And of course, if that's happening, then that takes that rental off the market.
Right.
But we desperately need to keep those people in there.
That's right.
Because if they don't, then we're back to the vicious cycle of them needing housing and affordable rentals too.
Right, and as you point out, it really is a vicious cycle. We're just
it's turning
so
into
short.
A very vicious cycle. I'm watching, it's like watching a dragon eat its own tail. And that's what really worries me. I got to be honest with you. I'm really worried right now that not only will young people never have a chance to stay here, but a lot of older people are going to have to leave because they simply can't rise with the tide.
What can the county do? What do you see as options that the county and the county in partnership with the state do to get moving?
I think that's one thing. I think the county needs to be almost draconian with its power of zoning and demand from developers that the kind of mixed housing that needs to occur. And they also need to force developers to build where the infrastructure is located. One of my colleagues, that's been his saw for a while, but he's right. We let developers build wherever they want. And then it's up to the county and the state to run infrastructure out to them. And now you have a hodgepodge. Now you have huge communities with only one school. You only have one hospital still, You don't have the arterial connection of streets and services that you need, of infrastructure, so you don't have traffic issues. And that's where I think, there's places on the municipalities on the mainland where they've become very aggressive because they know that this is a unique place people want to come into. It's, in order to provide affordable housing and rentals in a hyperactive market, especially with an affluent visitor base, like this one municipality in Colorado, they need to take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and use the power of zoning to deliver the kind of housing that people need, but also where it should be placed, so we can enhance our infrastructure, enhance access to schools and medical cares and shops and businesses, and not have more traffic, more congestion, and obviously that creates more issues too.
Absolutely. And, we all support infill projects because, again, you're working where the infrastructure exists. But, given your comment, so do you not see that the county has a role in infrastructure development and expansion as well?
Oh, it does.
Okay.
But the county needs to make sure that, and they totally are, they're the tip of the spear. But the county needs to make sure that whatever new development is coming in from developers is going to align with that. I guess that's the point I was trying to make.
Awesome.
The county is building the infrastructure. They have the responsibility to do it, but they also need to leverage the developers into looking into these areas to develop and be clear. Hey, you want to develop outside of this area, it's going to be a long haul.
I appreciate hearing that.
Place it in these areas where we have infrastructure being developed along with the state, and we will help to, it'll be a smoother transition to actually getting homes up in the market, built and actually online.
Yeah,
that's what I was kind of trying to say. The county is critical in all this. They're the closest form of government in the neighbor islands that people have. They have the power of zoning. They can set the terms and limitations, and create a vehicle or a way to incentivize this kind of development to happen in areas where their infrastructure is coming online and be part of a general island plan for cohesiveness too.
Right.
I'll call him out right now. One of my friends, the former mayor, he shared that concern. If it goes willy-nilly, the Central Valley, the distinct separation of communities will be gone. This will be one giant megaplex from one end to the other. And then, of course, you got to run all that infrastructure out there.
Yeah.
And, we should be trying to say, hey, developer, come into this area. We have infrastructure. We're working with the state. We have a school coming online. if you want to do a project here, we'll work with you because this lines up with what the county's trying to do with infrastructure and the community plan and all sorts of things.
It really does take everybody working in tandem.
It really does.
It really does.
It's really a team sport.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The county quarterback keeps throwing over my head. Not going to catch anything, but we need our county. Our county partners are, we're lucky we've got a great council, and our mayor's doing a good job. He's finally working with them, I think, proactively, which is good to see. But we need everybody kind of on the same page, especially since so many services in Hawaii, unlike other places, are done at the state level. Go to the mainland, hospitals are a municipal thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Schools are municipal. Fire, they're all municipal, but here it's state.
No, that's true. Well, let's talk about that because you alluded to earlier, and we were talking just before the show started, about hospitals, hospital capacity. And of course, we all know that we desperately need a 24/7 emergency medical facility in West Maui. And we know that in terms of getting a hospital built or facilities, additional facilities coming online, there's the certificate of need process. So can you tell us a little bit about the progress on the recent discussions to make sure that West Maui is getting the urgent care that it needs? And where do we go from here in expanding capacity and addressing the certificates of need issues?
Well, I think there needs to be a frank discussion about the CON. I know my colleague from South Maui, Rep. Wildberger, had brought it up in the past, and she's actually here 400 feet away from me with Congressman Mckelvey right now. And again, that's good I get to invoke his name because federal support obviously is key for everything that we've talked about, including in healthcare. But I think we need to take a hard look at the CON process. The kind of the double-edged sword with the CON is that, I guess when you saw what happened to Kahuku, they built a facility in North Kohala. They built facilities out there. And what happened is because there wasn't enough patient flow, there wasn't enough participating providers, all of a sudden the hospital ran into the red fast. Both facilities ran into the red. Mm-hmm. And the state had to come in and basically financially support them and bail them out. So there's that. But then on the other side of the certificate of need process is, to your point, Pam, you're keeping out all types of investment opportunities and competition. And when there's other entities that are looking to come in to provide that service and needs and infrastructure, you're likely to get other groups, investment partners, doctors to move on doing it. And you can kind of create competition and demand for entities coming in here providing what we need, not only 24-hour medical, but as Pam, you and I talked about offline, the need for office spaces for docs. Right. I mean, it's a kind of an underlooked thing, but, doctors on the mainland hooey up. They buy a cheap commercial building in a cheap zoned area, and they share the infrastructure, paperwork, and everything, and they have a group practice. But it's so cost prohibitive out here that they can't do that. So I'm hoping as this facility moves forward, and it sounds like that's part of the plan, at least in my last conversation with them, to provide that kind of space. And I think that will not only bring doctors into the area, but also can attract specialists, which we have none of. And to reflect on my dear old mom for a second,
yes,
there's a huge other big need is there's no senior support services in the West Side. Mm-hmm. We don't have the kind of care homes or retirement homes that other areas do. We don't have you don't have in-home servicing that could be done through a West Maui facility. And a lot of people are forced to move out of this area and can't age in place anymore because there's no type of support resources, not only medical, but also in the care end of it.
Right, so, the spectrum, yeah.
And to the CON, we need to look at it too, because, look, with all of this wealth flowing into this area and the demand that comes behind it for modern services, there could be the potential to really do something, build upon the West Maui Hospital and do even more to tap into that. So this is why the CON may need to go. It's a good reason why it alone may need to go bye-bye.
Yeah, and as you point out, we've got a large population of people aging here and we're going to continue to see that grow. And so the need for services is clearly growing.
And the concern is, and I get it, there's some concerns like, well, if you do that, and the medical care will be displaced and out of reach for regular folks. But my counter argument, or I guess counterpoint would be better, not an argument. The counterpoint would be, yes, but we have nothing now. It's 0 right now in the column.
Yeah.
You know, so we have 0. So let's take a chance to get 1, 2, 10, 20 in there. But if we keep going the way we're going, it's going to stay where it's at, which is a big fat 0.
Yeah. And again, I think, you know, it's we got to get back to, again, community planning on this as well, and make sure that, you know, we don't want people displaced. We need to make sure that we've got, you know, we don't want have and haves not. We need equitable distribution of healthcare services, and we need.
I think you can do that without the rigorous formulatic approach of the CON process.
Yeah.
But I think that the idea of the CON is, you know, and this I think where the conversation could go is, okay, can it be evolved?
Right.
To allow for more competition, to take away the regulatory structure, but yet, you know, ensure that there's still a way to ensure access for all of our community.
Absolutely.
That medical care doesn't completely go skyrocket. And look what's happening now. A lot of doctors have what they call like club memberships, if you will, membership-driven practices.
Yes, I know of many people.
$4,000 a month, you can go in anytime you want and see them access 24/7.
Unless they're on vacation.
Don't pay that, guess what? You're probably going to be. And that's something I hope we can look at next session too. Boutique medicine. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, if it continues to escalate the way it is, yeah, there's a real concern that all the physicians in the area could all be boutiqued out.
I mean, I seriously know of about 4 people in Pukalani that are our neighbors, and they've been approached with offers like that. That, you know, you join a certain physician's club, and you're part of his club, and it's a limited club, and that's the number of patients that the physician's going to serve. And, you know, and aside, you know, you've got great care, and they're working directly one-on-one. And in some ways, it's also helpful because you're seeing the same person over and over again who really knows you. So it's...
True, but everybody deserves that. Well, that's what, when I grew up in line in the 70s, we had that.
Yeah.
We all had Dr., you know, Dr. Ben, this is for you. Yeah, we all had a Dr. Adkins.
That's right.
We had a Dr. Norm. You know what I'm saying? People who would basically, but, you know, even them, I mean, a lot of these practices have had to, you know, they embrace boutique medicine because simply the cost of practice, especially with electronic record keeping, is going to the roof.
No, it's changed so much. You know, I'm so sorry we are out of time, but we're going to have you on the show again.
No, I probably overspoke my allotted words anyway.
No, you're great. You're great. Thank you so much, Representative
You're welcome,
McKelvey.
and everybody, just all I can say to you, Maui Nui, just hang in there. Just like the kitten on the poster, just hang in there.
Oh, bless you. Well, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
We know you've got a lot of important work, but thank you for joining us.
You bet. Okay, take care, everybody. Aloha.
Aloha. We'll be right back after a quick message from Mokulele Airlines.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
And we're back. If you're just tuning in, this is Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce and our sponsor, Mokulele Airlines. Our next guest is a friend of ours. It is Joe Pluta, president of the West Maui Taxpayers Association and West Maui Improvement Foundation. Many know Joe, but he has 30 years in the real estate and travel industry in Hawaii. He has been devoted to a myriad of diversified positions from the ground floor in restaurants, hotels, and condominiums, hotels on up. Originally from Chicago, working with his parents in the family business, he came to Hawaii in the submarine service of the U.S. Navy. He worked in various positions in the travel industry while he attended the University of Hawaii and graduated with a BBA in travel industry management and real estate. He is a current member of the Board of Realtors on Maui, Lahaina Rotary, and volunteers on numerous committees in our community. Aloha, Joe, and good morning. We're so glad to have you with us.
Aloha, Pam. Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Well, I hope you were getting to listen in a little bit. We were just talking about the West Maui facilities and having a 24/7 medical facility in West Maui. I know this is of high importance to you, and it's a matter that is of high importance to Representative Mckelvey. Can you tell us a little bit more about where this is at?
Well, I wish I knew all exact details of that, because the private developer, Brian Hoyle, who's the president of Newport Hospital Corporation and the West Maui Hospital Foundation that he started, is keeping his communication skills are not the greatest for the community as far as updates go. As far as the way I understood it, he's reduced his plans now to make it a 5-bed critical access hospital instead of the 20-some-bed critical access hospital as was initially proposed, and that requires a redrafting of the plans, and he's doing away with the medical office building and replacing that with independent living units instead. So that those two changes are allegedly being done by his architectural team, and he's currently actively building the skilled nursing facility and assisted living facility right now. That's actually ongoing. The utilities are hooked up, or being hooked up, sewer lines, like power, those things, and
the utilities are getting
foundations being laid and things like that. So we don't. Under the best set of circumstances, I think we're looking at some place late 2022 before construction would begin on the hospital portion, and not to be open until 2023.
Okay. And do you have any idea on why, again, was it a monetary thing where he flipped and is working on the assisted living before the hospital?
Well, it's not my... unfortunately, he's kept a lot of things close to the vest in terms of what his problems were. He said it was financing. He couldn't get the kind of financing he desired to do the hospital the way it was originally envisioned, and that forced him to initially abandon the concept of doing a hospital at all.
Oh, wow.
And then he resurrected that once he found that he would lose his certificate of need if he did that, because it was a major change in his application, and the skilled nursing facility requires a certificate of need, so he would have lost that. So he, rather than losing that, I believe it seems that then he made a decision, okay, well then I've got to come back with some kind of hospital thing to satisfy be able to retain that certificate of need. And that again comes right to the full circle of my biggest concern was way back then, and still is today, is that a certificate of need requirement has literally kept Hawaii's residents, and especially Maui community, from having much better health care than we have here. We're the most underserved neighbor island in the state of Hawaii when it comes to access to emergency medical care and critical access beds, intensive care beds, and it's just a shame where the state is its own worst enemy. That policy, when the state was in the hospital business, I understood that, because they were trying to preserve their own protection. The state and the taxpayers were funding these hospitals, and they didn't want any competition. So if you were going to build something that was going to compete against them, they would not grant you that, so that they couldn't be competed against. Preserve their monopoly. While that was devastating to a lot of people's lives, ultimately, it was an economic decision that they made. But when the state got out of the hospital business and no longer is in the hospital business, which is great, that same logic is still being perpetuated. So it's just protecting the bottom line of existing monopolies of people who have services, all at the detriment to the community who actually needs these services. So it's like not letting there be another Chick-fil-A in the state of Hawaii or McDonald's because you might compete against another McDonald's. It's so wrong, and it comes to lives, especially it's worse than wrong. So I'm very, very upset that all these other governors in the states that still had, almost all the states abandoned certificate of need laws many years ago because they were deemed to be not practical, no longer prudently responsible to have and they abandoned them. The
Right.
few states that held on to them, their governors suspended them, the certificate of need laws immediately when COVID was happening, to encourage anybody who wanted to have any kind of health care services to their states to come in and not be subject to any certificate of need requirements.
Right.
All those states did that except for, of course, Hawaii. Hawaii's, our governor has not done that, but what I'm trying to do is encourage a campaign now to persuade the governor to immediately suspend the certificate of need requirements, to send out the word that Hawaii is open for health care, and to please come back if you've applied in the past or wanted to come to Hawaii to offer health care services. The door's open. We've abandoned this, or the certificate of need is no longer applicable. Come on in and let us help you establish your health care services in the state of Hawaii. That's the kind of message we need to get out there, because right now Hawaii's off the map.
Yep.
I know you were here when Maulolani was denied their
Yes.
150-bed hospital in 2006.
Yes.
And that was just devastating. So that sent a shockwave to the entire healthcare world that, wait a minute, the state of Hawaii denied a 150-bed state-of-the-art hospital, not costing one taxpayer dollar, that was going to be state-of-the-art, had 100 physicians signed on it, over a $200 million commitment to finance and pay for, in a beautiful location, Maui Research Technology Park. And they said no. Well, then just, let's forget about Hawaii then.
Right.
Hawaii's no longer on the radar for any of us in the major hospital healthcare providers. They just took us off the map. That's got to be changed, and as soon as possible.
I wholeheartedly agree. It is a huge issue, and Joe, we thank you for your tremendous leadership over the years on this issue. And you probably just heard about Angus saying, it's time for a revisit and a look. So I think this is the time, and I appreciate the work that you're doing with the governor. Let's talk about one of your other top priorities, which is the rising cost of homes in Hawaii, and the challenges that we have all across Maui County, but also particularly in West Maui, on affordable housing and affordable rentals.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. It seems like everybody's got great intentions. Our intentions, all these laws and regulations and ordinances that we have here, were all well intended when they came about, but they haven't kept up with what the reality is, the reality situation. So what we want and how we're going to get to what we want is got to be relooked at. I think we have to change the way we think about the way we think. And that I know that sounds a little complicated, but that's what, in essence, it means. We got to change the way we think about the way we think. And how to get to where we want to go with respect to affordable housing, all we have to do is look at history. How is all these great ideas, ambitions, wishes, and affordable housing and perpetuity, all these things, things that sound so great, what percentage of housing has that resulted in us obtaining? When we say, developments now have got to include at least 50% of affordable housing in order to get approvals. How much housing did that generate for us? Zero. All these, nothing. And at the same time, our West Maui community population has grown, and they can't. There's no place for them to live. So where have they gone? They've gone. The ones who already weren't living on the other side of the island are commuting to the mainland now. They're going.
Right.
Forget about Hawaii. They can't live here anymore, and the prices are just out of sight. All the developers have said and told the council and the different boards and commissions that in order for them to do what's now been pegged an affordable housing development, that these tremendous infrastructure costs that are on-site and off-site improvements that are being laid on them for
Right.
their project somehow results to close to a $200,000 per unit before they put a shovel in the ground.
Right.
And that there's no absolutely impossible to result in affordable housing on that basis. There's got to be some participation in infrastructure by the county. It'd just be a great investment if the county was thinking like a business person. They'd say, what do we get for our investment? Well, we get a population who's going to pay taxes
Right.
on that, and the property taxes forever will be repaying us our investment, and it will take away some homelessness, some police
Right.
needs for the violence and things that all the ills of houselessness and homelessness causes here.
Yeah.
There's got to be. So many people have said we want to see action instead of talk.
That's right.
But I've heard that stated by people, and it's and people who could make decisions and do action, but their action has been just more talk.
Right.
That's what their action's been,
and
it hasn't been resulting into anything.
No, you're right.
Some affordable housing projects that I've seen, people have no idea when it comes to taxpayer dollars that the county spends. I understand this latest one on Lahaina Business Complex is going up. That the 100% affordable rental complex is cost the county of Maui through its programs of paid close to $800,000 per unit.
Yeah.
That was the actual cost.
Yeah.
So if the county's paying taxpayer dollars, willing to spend $800,000, and then they're making it a truly affordable in perpetuity rental complex, okay, that's all admirable. But how can they expect anybody who's not being subsidized with taxpayer dollars or using taxpayers' money to match that? They can't do that. You can't ask a private person to say it's going to cost you $800,000 per unit, but you have to make it available to sale for someone in the $300,000 range.
Right.
It lose $500,000 per unit.
It just doesn't work. Yeah.
No, it's ridiculous.
But like you said, again, if we look at things in a different way and we look at the infrastructure investment, as you pointed out, and we look at the return on investment back to the county for investing in the infrastructure that then allows developers to come in and build at a more reasonable cost, that really seems to be a huge part of the way to go. So, I think, again, like you said, getting back to, we have to look at the way we think and find, revisit how we're thinking about things and change some of those things.
Public-private partnerships need to be explored even more so.
Right.
Public-private partnerships, there's ways to do these things, and there's a way within the law to make some restrictions about who can live where in a club format. Like if people say, I only want this should only be able to be purchased by Hawaii residents only, or local residents, and a lot of things that have been, a lot of requests and ideas have been deemed to be against federal fair housing laws and unconstitutional and discriminatory and for some things. But I've seen there's creative ways around that by making private clubs, or people will be a member of a club, and then once they do that, now that there's a way to narrow that focus, to be able to make it so that you first have to join this club, and as a member of that club, then you can purchase into this housing, and but you have to all these requirements. You must be local. You have to have lived here at least a couple of years or something. Whatever you can put provisions and requirements to that.
Joe,
so there's a way to skin the cat, or whatever the euphemism you want to come up with.
Yeah. Well, let's move on, because I appreciate that we've had a chance to talk about that, and I also wanted to talk to you about sea level rise, because that's really impacting your community. Tell us about we've got vulnerable infrastructure and populations concentrated in low-lying areas. Tell us about the work being done there.
Well, that's a good question. The West Maui Taxpayers has been working on realignment of the highway to the other side of the island for at least 25 to 30 years. And there's been all types of proposals to do that. And the county has done research paper after research paper and traffic study after traffic study. And there's no action again. Now they're studying it again in a proposed realignment the state DOT has got for a portion. When they built the bypass, they thought they were going to take care of some of that in that area of Olawalu, Lani, where there was the roadway was so close to the shore that was falling into the ocean.
Right.
By moving it back and the bypass, but it fell short of the problem area.
Right.
It didn't go far enough. to cover that. So now they're looking at relocating the highway there. But it's a very real situation here. There's no question about that. There should be no construction built in flood zones like that anymore that cannot be certified. The whole idea about this relocation or future, well, they want to push back existing shoreline developments to bring them inland. Well, that's not realistic in the near future when it comes to these expensive properties on the ocean front. That's 45, 50 years down the road. Whatever, when these things are being replaced, they will not be able to be replaced where in the locations they are now because of that. But there's no, everybody is on board with the fact that it's a real problem. Right. There's no question about that. But we've got to do what we got to do in the meantime.
Right.
Beach restoration needs to be done because that's an interim workable solution that works and it preserves shorelines, and you're not armoring the shoreline. You're bringing sand back to the beach where it was.
Awesome, and Joe. I'm gonna have to end you there. I'm so sorry. I know it goes quick, but thank you so much. We're glad to have you on, and I hope you have a beautiful Maui day.
Thank you so much, Pamela. God bless you.
God bless you too. Talk to you again soon.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
And we're back with Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce and our sponsor, Mokulele Airlines. I wanted to now welcome Erickson, and she is with Maui Honeybee Sanctuary. In the spring of 2015, Erica combined her passion for honeybees and her love for crafting and created the Maui Honeybee Sanctuary. So aloha and good morning, Erica. How are you this morning?
Aloha, good morning. Thank you for having me.
So glad to have you. It's our pleasure. I love that you said that you combined your love and passion for honeybees with crafting. Tell me about the crafting part and this inspiration that got you started.
Sure. So I've always been a very crafty girl. Growing up, I was always making things, starting with jewelry and making clothing. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago when I started making beeswax crafts. So I started making beeswax lotions, lip balms, candles, and I started to learn about the honeybees.
That is awesome. So tell us a little bit about the company. And as you started learning about the honeybees and got into this crafting, is that something that you focus more on now full time? And what kind of products are you making?
Sure. So the Maui Honeybee Sanctuary is our farm located upcountry. So we are near Ulupalakua, just 2 miles beyond the winery. So I've been growing this operation for about 5 years, where I sell my products, honey and the candles and other beeswax products that I make, at my roadside stand. Also at the sanctuary, we provide opportunities for education around honeybees. I love to get people in bee suits and show them inside the hive to have that first experience with the hive.
Well, I've been out to your stand, and you've also got different people who come and stay and help run the stand.
Yeah, we do. People come and volunteer from around the country, and they get to learn about bees while helping us to grow our operation. And so we've been able to grow our operation, and we actually just opened a retail shop in Paia as well, and that shop is called The Beehive. So people can find all of our local products there.
You know, it's so awesome. And I just want to tell you that the two ladies that I met were just such a treasure. And the time that they spent, we stopped by, we got to walk around a little bit, we enjoyed the stand and got to shop and, of course, buy some honey, but also there was other great little gifts there. And but I could clearly see that you're taking the time to educate these folks who are coming and volunteering to stay at your place. They were very knowledgeable and very relaxed. It was such a wonderful, relaxed environment where people coming up to just explore and find out more really get quite an education when they're up there.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad your experience was positive.
It was really wonderful. So let's hear about what kind of products are you creating, and what are the most popular products?
So my most popular product is a beeswax food wrap that we make. So it's a reusable food wrap. Beeswax. It's an alternative to plastic wrap we would normally use. So it's totally washed.
You're cutting in and out just a little bit. So tell us again. For some reason, it's cutting just all of a sudden. So we got it. It's a beef flax food wrap.
Yeah. So the beeswax food wrap is basically an eco-friendly alternative to plastic wrap. Instead of using plastic wrap, which harms the environment, and you discard it and it creates waste, you use this food wrap instead. And so I create that by melting the beeswax until it's liquid, and then I dip the fabric inside, and the fabric absorbs the wax. And you can use it over and over. It lasts for over a year.
That is so awesome. If you haven't seen it, we bought some, and it really works well. It's funny. I have people see me wash it and say, I don't get that. How does that work over and over again? And I said, I don't know. It just does.
Yeah.
But I wash it gently. I wash it, and I don't run it under a lot of hot water. I never really quite got the instructions, so it seems like the longer the wax is in the material. And of course, because of the wax, it clings great to your bowls and to your plates or whatever you're trying to wrap. It connects really well and has a good seal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of your top products. What are some of the others that you're producing?
So I also make lotions with beeswax. So really nice lotions that are made without preservatives or chemicals. So totally natural, just made with beeswax, organic oils, and essential oils as well. So that's a really great product because it's really good for dry skin, and the beeswax keeps the moisture locked into your skin when you use it, so it really helps people with dry skin conditions or just like an overall moisturizer or massage cream.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And tell us about how you went from doing the farm and the sanctuary and your stand there to going to Paia and creating the beehive.
Yeah, so it's always been my dream to have a shop, and Paia is one of my favorite towns, and so I was really fortunate to be able to set the shop. We actually just opened yesterday, had our first customers, so it was a really exciting time, and I wanted to have more of a reach and to be an extension of our farm so that we can reach more people, bring more people up country through that location, letting them know about our experiences that we have at our farm so that they can come up and experience for themselves.
That is amazing. And congratulations on the opening.
Thank you so much.
How exciting. Just yesterday. Well, this was perfect timing to get you on today.
Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about, do you do farm tours? You mentioned that you'll get people in a suit and they can experience the beehives.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite things is to connect people with the bees. So we have a farm tour that we call the Honeybee Adventure. And so people come in, and I teach them about bees for about 20 or 30 minutes, showing photos, so they have a good sense of the bees and how the colonies work together. And then we get in the bee suit fully protected, and we look inside the hive, and people love to be able to hold the frame of the bees. Of course, we take photos, and it's just a really magnificent experience to have that hands-on feel with the bees. And, a lot of people come in being afraid of bees, and once they have that experience, they see the bees in a whole new light, and they're more accepting of the bees and more friendly. They realize they're more friendly than they seem.
Yeah, I think that that's very true. I took a bee class several years back, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, and it was interesting. Got in the suit, we didn't exactly get in a suit. We put on some protective gear over our heads, but we actually used our bare hands to go into and lift out the slats of the hive and check on the hive, and had different people. We had to do smoking for each other and kind of work through it. And it was a little nerve-wracking at first for a minute as the bees kind of ran up my hand, and but as you just calm down and relax into it,
Yeah, it's really amazing experience to feel the vibration and to smell the smells that are coming out of the hive. It's a really cool experience.
Yeah, and it really changes your perspective, and to learn how those little buggers are the greatest workers ever. They don't want to waste anything. A lot of lessons to be learned.
working for the hive, and they provide, of course, about 1/3 of the pollination services for our planet. So they are, that's why they get that reputation as being busy as bees, because they're out there pollinating a lot of the food that we eat.
Yes. And have you had, I know across the nation we're just hearing about, tremendous issues in preserving bees and keeping bees alive. And, of course, there is that, I forget what it's called. Is it a hornet that beheads them? And how are the colonies that you've got doing? And are there concerns in Hawaii? Oh, Erica, did we lose you? Oh, I think we lost Erica, but we'll try and get her back on and hope that she can rejoin us in a moment. We're going to see if we can give her a quick call. But, it's exciting to hear what she's doing. And I think we got her back on. Erica, are you back on?
Yeah, sorry, you lost me there for a moment.
Yeah. Oh, no worries. I know with technology today, I've had so many times where my phone has just dropped out as well.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if there's any concerns that you have in Hawaii for protecting your bee colonies.
Well, we're quite lucky in Hawaii that we have a lot of conditions that are really great for the bees. So you may have heard of colony collapse disorder, which is a term that they gave a couple years back to a die-off of bees that happen on the mainland. So it's an issue for the bees. But in Hawaii, having the endless summer weather here, we don't have winter. There's a really great environment for the bees to live in. So we don't have a lot of the problems that you hear about in the mainland. We also don't have a mite. It's a parasitic mite that affects the bees a lot on the mainland and throughout the world, really, called the Varroa mite. And we're very fortunate that Maui is one of the only places in the world that doesn't have this Varroa mite. So keeping bees in Hawaii is actually just quite a joy, and it's very abundant and a great place to get honey from because we don't take too much from the hives because they're constantly producing year-round.
Wow, that's amazing. And one of the things that I was fascinated by is that the honey flavoring is based on where the bees are pollinating and what flowers or trees or they're. Oh, I'm sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, honey is different based on where the beehives are stored, so it can be completely different. It can be completely different throughout the island based on what is in bloom, and the honey can be different color, different texture, and different flavors. So we also offer honey tasting at our farm as well as our shop downtown.
Awesome. Erica, we're sorry we've got to run, but thank you so much for joining us for Business Matters, brought to you by Mokulele Airlines. I'm Pamela Timpot, President of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, wishing everybody blessings and best wishes for a beautiful Maui day. Ahui ho.